All right. Welcome everybody to May. Hopefully we're already over a weekend in May. Hopefully you have some time to savor May. Our check-in this morning for Lead Educator Connection is, what is your favorite flower? Because May flowers, right? Invite you to waterfall those into the chat as we get started. And as people continue to join and turn their cameras on as they're able. No surprise, Nathan says lilacs. Yeah, it is a hard one. Also a fan of peonies. The smells, all the smells of spring and summer, right? Party is a good one too. All right, as those continue to come in, I'm just going to share with you our agenda for the day. For this morning, we've got some resource sharing from a couple different folks, couple different sources, and then Dave's got some topics to cover with all of our lead educators this morning. And then we always have time for what needs do you have currently? What questions do you have? It's been a little bit since we've had a statewide lead educator session, so I wanted to leave it open for the second half as more of an unconference for what do you need, what's lingering, what's unclear, and have some time for that. So that's our goals today. I'm going to hand it over to Jill to share with us 4-H support staff onboarding that she's been working on. And I'm going to share a resource, share my screen and a resource that she gave me. So take it away, Jill.
Awesome. Thanks so much for this time, Megan, and for allowing me to go first. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we're good.
Fantastic. Awesome. Thanks so much. After I have been working with 4-H programming staff on a 4-H onboarding plan here for the last 2 years, it became evident that 4-H support staff, or those support staff members with 4-H responsibilities, would also benefit from having something similar. And so I created a support staff onboarding opportunity for those with 4-H responsibility, with really having a big picture 4-H look, and not to replace anything that happens locally either. And so this is really a piece in which we go over where to find resources, what does 4-H data look like, 4-H roles and responsibilities, etc. I provide a document, I think, that Megan is sharing now, and ultimately that has just some things for them to read, review, and or watch. And then I offer every other month a virtual onboarding session where we go through a variety of topics where they are able to ask some questions, get clarification, and just kind of have some networking with others who are just beginning. And so that's where we go through really about the roles and responsibilities and some other big picture Nebraska 4-H pieces. So I have shared this via email. And Megan, I'm not sure where you store the files for this group. But if it can be located there, that would be fantastic. And then of course, we will continue to update and or improve as we do this here with several new staff to see if it's still hitting the mark. So that's it. Just want to be a support for you from a big picture Nebraska 4-H standpoint and not replace anything that happens locally. So Megan, I'll take any questions.
All right. Thanks, Jill. To answer your question, we will share this on the Lead Educator Resources page under staff supervision. So we'll put that there.
Awesome. Thank you.
Questions for Jill? All right. Thanks, Jill, for sharing. And again, everyone can reach out to Jill as you onboard new support staff and or any other questions you have ongoing in that regard. All right. Okay, next up, we've got Carly is going to share with us Extension Board training modules. And I believe Carly's going to share her screen So I'm going to stop sharing so she can do that. That work, Carly?
Absolutely.
There we go.
All right. So, thank you for giving me a little bit of time on your agenda today. That I have been working with some of the EZCs over the last couple of years to build out the annual virtual extension board training targeted for newer board members. And as part of those conversations initially when we were starting it, we said, well, you know, a lot of times boards might struggle with what is their purpose, right? Like, why are we here? What are we meeting for? And sometimes it's just that business as usual, that they're showing up, they're gaining a little bit of information about what is happening, and you don't really need them to be advocating for you locally, maybe for your budget or for programming, or on a higher level at the state. So then it's like, well, what is their purpose, right? Like, you want them to be gaining some knowledge about extension, and then also some general maybe leadership concepts, because this might be some board members' first time on a board, or maybe they're a veteran, they've served on a lot of other boards. But so in this initial conversation of this extension board annual training, we said, well, we have so many ideas of other additional topics. We said maybe we would structure them in some modules that can be just quickly taken and implemented in a board meeting to just amplify some of that education pieces in a board meeting. And so we are finally, I know I've been talking about it for maybe the last year and a half or something. I'm like, this is going to be coming. You guys we're really working on this. It was a little bit of we had a few little speed bumps as we got diverted with our time on doing some other stuff, but we have a good chunk of modules built out already, and we're going to call 2024 this kind of our pilot year. So I'm going to be sharing the information with you, and what I would ask is that you take some time, try a few with your boards, and see how they land. If it works well, I'd appreciate some feedback. If it doesn't work well, I would love that feedback even more, just to say, like, how can we maybe modify this to make it easy for you? Because ultimately the goal is pulling out something that you could take into a board meeting, spend 5 minutes having a conversation about something, and then be able to continue on with the business that you're having. So this isn't supposed to be any additional work for you. Really, we tried to make this as streamlined as possible. So you'll see that really our overarching goal is to just increase the board members' knowledge and skills, along with giving them opportunities to provide feedback on the direction of extension within their local communities. The modules are put into 4 different buckets. We have kind of general extension, extension today and tomorrow, extension board, and board member kind of expectations and responsibilities, and then just some general leadership topics. And these are also the 4 structures that are part of our extension board annual training. So again, a lot of these just align well with them. So the modules are just 5 to 15 minutes in length. I mean, 15 would be if you get into a really robust discussion, but again, they're just very short, maybe, and they're a mix that we tried to make them. They might be some videos, some of them have handouts, some of them have an interactive activity. They all have some sort of discussion prompts, so that way you can do it. You could then you have like just time for discussion. There might be some pre or post work that you would ask of your board members. But again, the ask is very minimal on everybody's part. So this is just a little screenshot of what it looks like. So I have the next slide I'll share with the link to be able to go look at them. But they have, this is for you to be able to see. So notice under extension topics, it has just a very quick, if you're like, okay, what do I want to include today? It has this like, okay, this is a handout and this is what it's about. And then it has some discussion questions. And then I included, what's the preparation for you, right? So what do you have to do going into the board meeting? Some of it's just, you just print the handout and you have it ready to go on there. And then it has your discussion questions included. Again, we tried to keep this as low tech as possible. There are no PowerPoints. The only technology that you might need is if there is a video for any of the videos that we have to be able to set up a projector for that. But we understand nobody wants to pull out a projector and nobody wants to have 400 slides for a 5-minute presentation. That's just information overload. So again, we just tried to keep it very simple. And so here's my ask for you all. We're going to just spend 2 minutes or so. I'm going to put in the chat the link. Hopefully this works. If you guys will all go to this Go link that I put in the chat for those that are not on the road driving. And I just want you to take 2 minutes and you can either look through, there's going to be 2 documents in there. There's the modules, which are kind of with the instructions. And I included them all in the same document. So it's kind of, you can just go in there and easy to find. And then I also have a second document that just has all of the handouts. So if there is a handout associated with the module, then it's going to be in the handout document. So I'm going to ask you, we'll take 2 minutes, just scan through it. And then I want you to fire in the chat if there are any, if you're like one module really speaks to you that you might use at your next extension board meeting and why. So Sarah Paisley asked, are the videos online or will we be able to download them? That's a great question, Sarah. I can definitely drop them in a folder, and that's something we didn't think about. Most of them are like the videos are like the Big 3 video or like the 8 program area videos that are on Extension's website, which I will double check and see if we can get those downloaded. You can see the PDFs, but you can't open them, Lynn. Okay. Give me just a moment. This is what okay. Sorry, people. Just like Megan, I love SharePoint until I don't love it. So give me 1 moment. Let me see if I can change privileges.
If you select it and download it, and then select download, it opens. Hope that worked for me. That works fine.
Okay.
Just
Thank you,
clicking on
Kelly.
it does not work. Has to be downloaded.
Perfect. So then if everyone can download it.
And I just clicked on the link and they opened up. I didn't have to download, so I don't know.
I always say 2024, I'm going to figure out SharePoint. And then it loves to just knock me down. I think I understand it.
I clicked on it about 3 times and I finally gave up and selected download and then it worked perfect. So yeah, weird.
All right, so I'm going to give you until 9:17. You guys can, if you want to turn your cameras off, you can to look through them, because sometimes I know it's funny when you're reading something and you don't want people staring at you reading. All right, I know that was a quick 2 minutes, but again, I hope that you were able to at least skim through and kind of look at a few just briefly. And so I'd ask that you just pause, and if you downloaded them, then you can view them at your leisure later as well. But these will be put on the Lead Educator site when Megan gets that updated. But I'd ask that you put in the chat, is there one module that you really liked that you might use at your next board meeting, and why? Okay, thank you for those that have been putting in there. I appreciate the positive feedback. Again, we will take all feedback, good or bad, on ways to improve this. But again, the goal was to create something that would be easy for you to take and implement into your trainings, or not your training, your annual, your meetings, and they're just a quick little snippet of a training. And so you can take what you feel your board needs for that time. I will say that very first one that talks about the civil rights responsibilities, there are some states who have a very structured board training, and they have their boards do that every year. And I'm sure Dave might talk a little bit more later on just the need for that civil rights compliance. And so we would ask that if you try to do that once a year, maybe at your annual meeting, your first of the year meeting, if not, just try to squeeze it in there. But otherwise, all the other ones you can put in where you feel you need. And I will stop sharing my screen unless anyone, and then I'll take any questions. Otherwise, I'll relinquish my time.
Sounds like no questions. So thank you, Carly, for sharing all of that, and great resources for everybody. I'm going to go ahead and go back to sharing, hopefully. There we go. And the last thing on our resource sharing portion of our agenda is regarding NACO. There has been an update to the Open Meetings Act, and that was effective April 17th. And this is very long. It's a lot of words. If you didn't get the latest or haven't seen the latest NACO newsletter that was sent out towards the beginning of May, credit to Jordan for sharing this and asking if it could be shared widely on the Lead Educator session. I will forward it to the Lead Educator listserv, so all of you have this and have the direct links and can read it at your time as well. And so those that aren't here can have access to. Mostly the takeaway here is that there are new posters available as well. And so if your office would like to order a poster from NACO, you can do that. It gives you the information on that third bullet on how to do that with the updated amendment. And it talks about it's okay to use what you have right now until you get the new information, or just copy the one that NACO has available on their website to make that available. And a reminder too that the Extension Board meeting agenda template that is available on the Lead Educator resources page does have all of the things listed at the top for you and for your president to state everything that needs to be stated for Open Meetings Act, meaning this is an open meeting, here's where you can find the Open Meetings Act. All of that is already in the header at the top of that Extension Board agenda template. And so if you're not yet using that template, highly recommend it, because it does have all the things on there that you need to be in compliance with open meetings. So questions on that? I'm checking the chat. There you go. Jordan's got the links pulled up. Thank you, Jordan. And right where to find that file. And like I said, I will also forward out that newsletter email in case you did not receive that. So you've got those direct links, but just wanted to take a moment to make sure everybody knew that that was updated and that you can access the new document and get a poster if you want to, which are very nice. All right, questions on that? Anything I'm missing? Yeah.
I was just gonna say, you're presenting like we see all your other little slides at the bottom. Like,
oh, cool.
Not that I care, but I thought maybe you'd want to know.
doesn't, you know what, I'm gonna take that off anyway, and I'm gonna kick it over to Dave. So good timing. It looked even smaller for all of you, so also great. Thanks, Jennifer. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing. I'm gonna open up to Dave and let you take the rest of the topics, Dave.
All right, thanks, Megan. Well, good morning, lead educators. Great to see all your faces, and as always, thanks for all that you do. You are so important to Nebraska Extension and our local connections, and I can't overstate that. We've had a huge success collectively over the last 3 years. So as of today, 92 of our interlocal agreements with counties are completed or out for signature. So like we're right at the finish line. So I just want to thank all the engagement zone coordinators, all of you and your colleagues and your extension boards who have played a huge part in renewing those interlocal agreements. It had been 25 years plus since those had last been renewed. And so a lot of county board members didn't even know they existed, right? So, which made a lot of folks nervous 3 years ago when we said we were going to start renewing these. But it has went amazingly smooth. It really has amazingly smooth. So a few conversations with a few county attorneys, but not many. So thanks for making that that go very smoothly. I also end up just comment on the open meeting law. So if you're a new lead educator, take some time and read through the open meeting law. That's very important. An extension board is a public meeting, right? Those individuals are appointed by your local county boards, so we fit within the open meeting law. So look at things like when and how, where you post meeting minutes, or not minutes, but meeting agendas and notices. Also look at how soon you have to have the minutes available for public review. Think about how often you can meet virtually versus in person, right? So just a number of things to read through, and it's a document you'll find it sometimes doesn't read very smoothly, and that's because occasionally during a legislative session like this last one, there are a few additions, deletions, and edits, and so read it carefully. I think one of the most useful parts of the document is where, I think it's in the one that's shared, I'll double check. If not, the Nebraska Attorney General has a version that actually gives you court cases where parts of open meeting law were challenged. And there's a legal opinion on a specific case. And many times if you're unsure about how to define or interpret part of the open meeting law, there'll be an example case, court case that will help you say, okay, that helps me understand whether that applies to us or not. So I do post that open meeting law poster in plain view in your office, especially where your meetings are taking place. All right, Megan, I'll jump over to the official agenda now. So first item is extension assistant salary base salary updates. So I'll just preface this by saying this is all confidential in-house information that I'm about to share. So part of the challenge in moving forward with a salary-based increase for a classification of employees like extension assistants and associates is, number one, the whole NU budget situation doesn't make that easy. So it's been a heavy lift just moving this through the system. But also we have had no official word from the highest level NU regarding salary program for this coming year. So this is our best guess, our best projection on what we think will happen. I would especially encourage you, if you have talked to your extension assistants or associates about this, that you just ask them to keep this confidential. One of the worst things that can happen is for one of them to go talking throughout the courthouse about, hey, this is going to happen for me, right? And that spins around and hits the county board, and pretty soon we have all kinds of inquiries from the county board, and they nix it locally. They don't want to participate because they're not doing it the same for all their county employees, right? Which that's a whole nother topic. But what I'm saying is, let's just not make a spectacle of this in the courthouse or at the local county level. This is a big deal if we can pull this off for our extension assistants and associates. And only up this, your extension assistants and associates who are university employees are contract employees. They are not county employees, all right? They are contracted UNL employees that are in a separate job classification from county employees, right? So this is what we're attempting to do. So the current base for extension assistants is 38,000 start. We were contemplating whether to try to jump that to 40 or 42 this year. After conversations with NACO directors across the state, so Charlie and I took a road trip and visited all their district meetings this spring. After working with INR HR and looking at the numbers, crunching all these numbers. So you have to remember, so we're looking at what this will look like when you look at a base increase and you look at a projected merit, salary merit annual increase. And in some cases, you have promotion increases on top of that. So we didn't want to put ourselves in a position for failure by trying to stretch our county partners too far, too fast. So we made the decision that we're going to go for the 40 this year. And we're going to, with the intention of bumping up to 42 in the subsequent year. So for this year, it's up to 40,000. So you would think, okay, that's easy to figure, right? So that's a $2,000 base salary increase from 38 to 40. That's what it would be for all of the assistants or associates. Well, that's not how it works. Because you think about extension assistants and associates, there's about 65 total individuals in that job classification who are state employees, doesn't include any of the county employed folks. And so the salaries are so compressed, even from like the newest hire to someone who's been here for 10 years, or maybe $4,000 gap. I mean, it's very compressed, right? So when we do a bump like this, we have to look at an equity increase across the whole spectrum of employees in that job category. So for an assistant or associate who's been in the system for a number of years, let's say 10, 15, 20 years, that base increase gets multiplied. If you can imagine, we're projecting what their increase would have been if they would have started at this base salary when they started. So roughly speaking, if you look at extension assistants who are, the assistant classification, you look at the base increase plus the projected salary merit increase of somewhere between 2 to 3%. Again, we have no idea what that's going to be. But you're looking at a window of about a 6 to 8% increase for those extension assistants. About a 6 to 8% would catch most of those assistants. All right. There's a few outliers, but most of them being that 6 to 8% category. And if you look at associates or someone who's an extension assistant, getting ready to go up for promotion in the next year or two, that's probably going to look somewhere in the 8 to 11% total increase. Right? So I have those estimated numbers now. I still don't have the final numbers yet. So I know some of you have already worked on your budgets. You're doing your budgets right now. We can get our best numbers to you to plug in if you need those right now. The other thing to be thinking about is benefits, right? And benefits are sort of unpredictable because you never know what the employee is going to choose, and that doesn't happen until 6 months from now, right? When the university benefit anniversary cycle plays out. But so I look back, and again, this is a Dave number. This is not an official UNL number, but I look back at the last 3 years of what the university contribution has been to university employee benefits, and it's been averaging about 7.5% each year increase, about 7.5 on the benefits. And if you're new, lead educator role, this is a really important thing to remember when you're budgeting for an extension assistant that's a university employed university assistant. You have to include the salary and the benefits. Every once in a while, someone misses the benefit piece. All right. And the benefits can be a significant chunk of your budget. So make sure you think about that as you're working on your budgets. I mentioned, I think there are 2 assistants who are being promoted to associate this year. So you'll know who you are. So that's a 10% bump for an assistant to an associate. So that's on top of what I've just described. So our plan is Charlie's drafting up a letter to send to county board members, very similar to what we did, oh, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, the last time we did a base increase for assistants. And it will just kind of spell out our rationale, why we're doing this. We're looking at stair stepping it, so it's not, we're not asking for this entire bump up to 42 in 1 year. Our intent this year is just to get this accomplish the $40,000 base increase. In some cases, you have a split funded extension assistant, or maybe UNL is cost sharing that assistant with the county. That's just a handful of situations. So of course, in those situations, the county is responsible for whatever that agreed upon portion is, so whether it's 20, 80, or 50%. So that impacts just a few of you. So I'm going to stop with that piece and see what questions you have. Yes, it would be effective July 1. That is correct. Yeah, so NACO's really open to this. I mean, there was only one situation where we had someone really pushing back, and I think it was really unfounded. I think it was more of a personal vendetta versus anything to do with the university. Very open to this. In fact, this is something good for you all to know as well. So NACO just conducted a salary survey of their own. And so they routinely do this for elected officials. But what they did in the past year is they did that for all the rest of their employees, non-elected officials. So if you have county employed support staff or county employed assistants, they were a part of this survey. And so they're going to release that data mid-June at their summer meetings. And if your county participated in the study, you should be able to visit with your county clerk or someone at the county level, and they will have access to that database. And so if you are looking for comparables for your local support staff or a county employee assistant, you'll be able to see how those positions are being funded in other counties. So you'll have some comparables, which would be a really great resource for us because we get that question frequently. So my point of saying that is that they've also been thinking about this. And in fact, it was on the agenda at all these meetings as well, that this was coming out and that they're having similar issues that we have in attracting and retaining employees. And so we had more champions, and then we had naysayers during these conversations, and that was from east to west. In the eastern part of the state, I would say more pressure from county board members saying, you need to do this and you need to do it quickly because we're falling behind. And in the western part of the state, counties that have a lot of public land and much lower resource, concerned in a couple of counties in particular about how they would make this jump, how they would fund this. And so every county is in a unique situation. Yeah, when the letter will go out to commissioners, I was hoping I'd have it right now. I was hoping to have the final numbers. We're not going to put the numbers in the letter, but we just want kind of a final assurance from HR that we're good to go on this. We've had to do some kind of back channel conversations up through the entire university system to make sure that, we're not going to this isn't going to be halted at the 11th hour. And so waiting for those assurances before we go out with that communication, but that should be imminent. I mean, we have a template for what that letter should look like. It would go to the county board chair, and it would be copied to the lead educator and trying to remember last time if we copied it to both the lead educator and EZC. I'd have to double check that, but we copied it to one or both of you to make sure you were in the loop and you knew when that hit their desk.
Dave, the reason I asked that was because I know here in Lancaster, at least, they kind of like to have a heads up on letters that they receive from Extension. And I don't know if that's the case around the state, but I was hoping maybe to have a conversation a little bit, or just an email or something, giving them a heads up. I know it probably doesn't sound like it's a big deal, but for some reason here it seems to be, because I had some backlash the last time this happened a little bit. So
well, what we could do is send, I mean, the template's pretty or the letter's pretty standard, so we could send all of you, that's just that letter. I mean, it's not gonna be customized for your county, but it would just be, this is the communication going out. If that would be helpful, we can certainly do that.
yeah, I think so, maybe. We have our budget hearing is next week, so
Yeah.
it will, if they get this prior to me going there, then I should probably send them a heads up on it before.
Right.
Otherwise, I can just do it at that meeting, that they'll be getting a letter. That's why I wondered when it was going out, I guess.
Yeah, and I apologize. This has been a huge lift, and so it's just taken so much time to get everything in place. So, yeah, we will do our best to get information out to you as soon as we can. We did not want to delay this another year because it's just so pressing to attract assistants. We're just struggling in some areas to do that. So we want to get this across the finish line this year.
Dave, sorry.
Someone asked about equity. Someone sent me a message about what does it mean for equity for all extension employees. So I can always speak to this group as far as think about extension assistants and associates. So part of this process, whenever we do a bump like this, we do the equity. When I say we, I and our HR does the equity analysis across all those employees, looks at years of service, performance is included in there, and to again make sure that we have a little compression as possible from top to bottom in seniority within that group, if you will, and that we're honoring all aspects of the process, whether it be equity, its performance, its rank, and regardless of funding source, whether it's from NEP or university or county, everyone in this job classification is treated the same. Yeah, Angie, we actually start this process pretty early, but it always seems to drag to this point of the year because there's just in the system, they're just not having these conversations at the detail level where we have any numbers to work with until we get to this time of year. So we're always pushing to do it as soon as we can. Yeah, on the educator ranks, so we that was last done I think in 2017, and so we monitor that pretty closely. I mean, that's our educator salary formula, and we stay extremely close to that formula. So feel pretty good about that. We have a little bit of work to do in the educator ranks regarding equity, but we have done that, and we've done a ton of data analysis in that space. So I feel pretty good about where we're at there as far as equity goes. Yeah. So once that letter is ready, we'll just send that out to all of you, EZCs and lead educators, so you can see that and know what's coming, and that way you'll know exactly what we've communicated to your local commissioners. Again, be careful with this in conversations with assistants and associates. We don't want them or the courthouse getting ahead of us. This is between us and the county board members, and so it's best just to keep this kind of in-house until it's across the finish line. And that will be in the best interest of the entire process and with your local politics as well.
Dave, I don't know, there was one more question about having conversations with extension boards. I wasn't sure
Oh,
if we got that one answered, so I was just going back up to that. When is it appropriate to loop in extension?
yeah, you can do that anytime.
Okay.
Yeah, just tell them we're working on this base salary equity increase. And it's 38 to 40. And if, just be curious. So the best comparison we have for extension assistants and associates in the state we have found is teacher salaries. So if you think about what base teacher salaries are in your region, that's kind of sort of the benchmark we aspire to meet. We compare pretty well in the western part of the state and some of the large districts in the eastern part of the state. We're not going to be up with like Lincoln Public School systems. But that's the comparable group that we look at as far as HR looks at outside of extension to see where we feel like our extension assistant teachers, if you will, should be salary wise. And one of the things that was really important bumping up to 40 is there's something kind of magical getting to 40 or above. And so our HR experts are telling us that we need to be in that 40, 42 to be competitive. Yeah, Chuck, thanks for that question. Are there implications for county uh, paid county and more importantly, county employed extension assistants? And so there's always a little bit of a conversation about that when this happens. It's the county employee system is completely separate than the university employee system. So it's completely up to the county board to decide what they do with their employees and their salary programs as well. We don't have a lot of say, when I say we, university, and what each county is going to do. They're going to do their own local salary program. Some of those county salary programs have been pretty good in the last few years. So I'd argue some of those assistants have probably been outpacing our university employed assistants, and by a good stretch in a few cases. But that's up to them to decide. And that was an important part of the new interlocal that I just mentioned earlier, is we made sure that we made it clear that county employees were managed using county HR policy and university employees were managed using university HR policy. Right? Even though we coexist and we work in the same offices with a common mission, when it comes to HR and managing employees, and the rules that we follow, the policy, the hiring processes, employment processes, that is different, and that is up to the individual partner, university or county, to decide. It was 2017, Wayne.
That everyone got something?
I wasn't involved with it at the time, but it was an equity analysis of the extension educators.
Right, that was equity. I'm talking base adjustment.
Yeah, those are base adjustment at the same time. Up
I
until
know a
that
lot of
time,
people that
up
didn't
until
get
that
it.
time, there was not a base. There was no standard base for extension educators until 2017.
I know people that didn't get one. So and we're high performing. That's why I ask.
Yeah. Yeah. And so one of the things I can also say with extension assistants and associates, I mean, once you do an equity analysis, there are actually individuals who will show up and say, well, actually, they should be 2% lower than they are, right? For whatever reason. All right. So obviously, we're not going to go backward with any of those. In fact, we're probably going to do some kind of standard like 2% for all of those folks. So they get something in the process, but they're not left out of the process. But it'll be a number that keeps them in line with their peers with similar years of experience. So it's tricky. It's very Trish Dessart is a masterful at this. This is a complicated process.
I think the question, Dave, as I'm interpreting it though, so if the educator base was adjusted at some point, the feeling I get is that at that point, like if the educator base goes up, then everybody in the ranks, no matter where you're at, should go up equivalent to that to move. That's not necessarily how that works though in the university system either, is it? I mean, that would explain why not everybody got something, because they're looking for those that were below the base to bring them up. it's not an automatic, everybody goes up when the base
That's right.
goes up either.
That's right.
So that's
right.
why we,
And it comes down to funding, and a number of issues that come into play. And that's right, Lisa. All right, I'm going to move on for the sake of time to a couple other items here. So statewide educators. So these will be educators who are located off campus, but are at one of our centers, or they happen to be located in your county, right? So I'll just use like Dirk Charleston. So Dirk is at Vet Center at the Meat Animal Research Center in Clay County. So really, he's in that county. So when Dirk looks for support for his program, he doesn't have county support staff sitting there to help him, but he's part of the Nebraska Extension System. So, but what he may have are deposits, registrations, paperwork that has to go through the business center. And so how does he do that? So what we want that to look like is we want that to go through the resident county, wherever that statewide educator's office is located, that they work with their local county office to, funnel that paperwork through the business center system. We don't want cash and checks sitting around, laying around for a long period of time, waiting till they come to Lincoln or whatever. They can't make those deposits themselves. They have to go through the business center process. So we're just asking if you're a county that is a host for a state educator, that you work with them in doing so. You may also have, statewide educators who are traveling the state, and maybe they're on the road for a week, but they're bringing in a lot of cash and checks. And so they could stop by one of your offices and just connect with your support staff and say, hey, I need to make a deposit. Right. And there's a standard form, and your support staff just need whatever the account number is for that particular program. And then that deposit is made through your county's typical deposit process. Right. So that's the number one thing that we're just needing some help with across the state. We probably have 8, 9 statewide educators, maybe 10, that fall into this category. And we just ask for your cooperation in helping us do this. And if you have any specific concerns in your local county about what this looks like, I will be happy to visit with you about what that looks like. It typically seems to be a little more complicated when we have an educator located at one of our research and extension centers. That's usually where the hiccups occur for whatever reason. But I just ask that you just be open and make sure your support staff know that this is a possibility, especially if you have a statewide educator who's local, who may be dropping off some deposits or need some help running some paperwork through the business center. That makes sense to everyone? Just kind of a group that kind of falls through the cracks inadvertently. And so we want to be supportive and help them thrive as well.
Dave, there's another question. Maybe you're choosing to ignore it on purpose, and understandably so, but I think the time is coming around where everyone on the call understands your assistant conversation, and now the questions around educators and what is the university discussion. I know with budgets, that is the holdup. You guys probably don't know the answer, but
yeah,
to be fair to the group, what is their discussion? What raises may or may not happen?
So again, this is we're just doing our best to project and plan. So it's that 2 to 3% that I mentioned for assistants, associates, would be the same for educators. And so we don't technically do a cost of living with the university system. It's university increases are all merit based, and that's just language you'll see in the Board of Regents bylaws. That's how they approach increases within the system. So that's what we're projecting. But again, no official word from the NU system, but that IANR is operating under that assumption. The last thing I want to swing back to is Carly mentioned civil rights earlier. So we were promised a report from our civil rights review team right after the holiday season, New Year's, and we have not heard anything from them since then. So a lot of folks have inquired about like what happened. It was kind of a new process, you know, it was all virtual. We have some pretty good idea of some things that we need to enhance or do better within our system. One of them is what Carly just talked about, and that is just better universal training on civil rights, especially for compliance, and that is especially for new employees. In fact, Lisa, I think it's something at some point we'll somehow to introduce as part of the broader orientation to all extension employees. NEP does something like this now. And so I envision rather than kind of piecemealing it, we just have a comprehensive look at this is what it means to work at a land grant or a USDA agency, work part of University of Nebraska-Lincoln. These are things you need to be aware of to be inclusive and equitable in the civil rights arena. And so we're waiting for feedback on that. So you all did a great job of giving us what we needed to give them the data they requested. And so I think training will be one of the things. Pairs will be huge. Pairs is huge. We are not able to track our programming and our race, ethnicity, gender, and all of those things very well across all program areas. When we were asked for that data last August, Pairs will make that so much easier. In fact, I can tell you when I asked NEP for that data last August, they literally pushed a button and they sent us a report. They had it all. And most other program areas were sort of scrambling to say, okay, how many people have we reached? And what was the reg makeup of that group, et cetera. So more to come on civil rights, but having your extension board members be aware of this and that, yeah, we are part of the university system and the USDA is a really very important part of their role. And then the last thing is, and it should have, this is my mistake, not NACO director recruitment, but NACEB director recruitment. So NACEB director recruitment. So I'm going to put this in the chat here, I think. So these are the zones where we have vacancies. And we need to recruit a NACEB director. So if you're in one of those zones, so think about your extension board members over the last 3 years, and every zone has multiple counties. So we've got lots of potential candidates here, but who would serve the zone well? Who would represent your zone well? Would represent the university and extension well when visiting with state senators, going down to the Capitol, all those types of things. And even be a person who could serve as a mentor to some extension board members if you wish to have them do that. Think about your best. You know, who would you nominate to do this? And if we need a nomination for each of those zones. And I would also add, Megan, I think there's one director we have in zone 10 who's not very active. So we might be looking for one in zone 10 as well. You might say in like zone 4 or 7, like, well, we have 2 directors. So there's typically 2 directors in each zone, except for zone 9 has 4. If your local director is serving as an officer in the organization, then there's an additional slot open. So if they're an officer, they don't count as one of the 2 directors in your zone. That NACEB's gaining a lot of speed, highly recognized by university system and senators as a voice of Nebraska Extension. So it's in our best interest to have the best people possible serving on that board. And the way that works, once we have a nominee that we're good with, we ask all of your extension boards in that particular zone to affirm that you support that candidate. And then they are accepted into the NACEB as an official director. Megan, that was a lot, and that took way too much time, but
that's all right.
It's been a while.
We had time for it, and I knew it might. We do have a question in the queue already, and so if anyone else has additional questions, feel free to type those in the chat so that we can get to them. Question about expectations with multi-county educators for extension board participation. I'm going to read it. It says, what's the policy of expectation of multi-county educators for other educators to participate in extension board meeting besides the lead educator? So basically, a county that has 2 or 3 or 4 educators that are the office in that same county, you have a lead educator who leads extension board meetings. So the lead educator is always at the extension board meeting. What's the expectation for the other educators that also office out of that county to attend those extension board meetings regularly? Does that make sense as a question?
Is that a question for me?
Yes.
Okay, okay, missed that. Well, if you're that local county office, excuse me, you need to be visible with your local board. They need to know that you're a part of that local office team, what you're contributing in that office. I mean, ideally, we'd like each educator to at least virtually connect with every county in their zone. And Mississippi has huge zones, right? To make those counties know and those stakeholders know that you're a resource in that region for them. But boy, if you're in that local office, definitely be visible. Make them proud that you're a part of the local team. Give them something to talk about with their constituency.
I know a couple of counties with multiple educators have a schedule or a rotation system. So they've all agreed and everyone's in agreement that they would attend a meeting this month, and then the next one would attend the meeting the next month, and they rotate for that. Also for 4-H educators to balance those 4-H council meetings as well. So I know that is one structure that is working. Again, it works because everyone's in agreement and it does not hold any blame, shame, or guilt for any others that don't attend for that. So, but everyone's agreed to it. So that's why that works.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then question about claims and financial approval is also there. You see that one, Dave?
Yeah, so officially county boards approve all claims. But this really depends a lot on your local situation too. I mean, some county boards probably rely more on their claims than others. So do what's working locally. Work closely with your county boards to see how they want to operate in this realm. But yeah, in some cases, claims are just moved directly to the county board and they're approving them directly, unless there's something unusual, like maybe a big IT cert request or furniture or something that's out of the ordinary. But I would say that's all local. So work that out locally. I'm sorry, I need to jump and start an interview in just a second. So thanks for all of your time. Thanks for everything you do. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Dave. I'm going to stop the recording and I'll stay on in case there's any additional questions.